Hey, Alex here. I have decided to make a semi-consistent upload schedule of once a month. Hopefully that'll keep me from making any droughts of content that last too long. Anyway, last year you guys voted to have a video about the chimpanzee, and I am obliging. Chimpanzees are the most common of the non-human great apes, hence their longer name, the common chimpanzee. This is not to say that they are common in absolute terms, of course, as like all the non-human great apes, they are endangered. Chimpanzees usually stand between 3'3" and 5'3", with the majority of the apes being roughly 4 feet tall, and have an arm span about 40% greater than their height. Chimpanzees are in the genus Pan, alongside their skinnier cousin the bonobo, from which they diverged when the Congo River was formed about 1 million years ago. These apes are unusual in sharing a number of derived characteristics such as humongous testicles. They also have highly suspect predatory behavior. Chimpanzees are the only great apes to regularly hunt down, kill, and eat weaker primates. This means that if we tied up Joe Rogan and tossed him to the chimps, he would hopefully be devoured. For legal reasons, that's a joke. Okay, comedy hour is over. Back to business. Let's get more in depth about these apes. Chimpanzees have an unusual, intermediate morphology between that of quadrupeds, brachiators, and bipeds. For apes, they have relatively long back legs, and the intermember ratio is typically about 105, meaning the arms are only 5% longer than the legs. For comparison, another great ape, such as the orangutan, might have an intermember ratio as high as 140. Chimpanzees rely mainly on those enlarged back legs for propulsion and support on the ground, but use their arms and legs about equally in the trees. Suspensory behavior is not actually very popular as a form of movement, and the chimpanzee is the only great ape to regularly leap across gaps in the canopy, much like a monkey. Chimpanzees also use a special variant of knuckle walking, distinct from that of the gorilla in that the wrists are extended. They possess a ridge on the radius that helps lock the wrists and keep it from hyperextending, allowing them to walk and even run with their wrists in this position. Because they are the only apes to knuckle walk in the trees as well as on the ground, the lumbricals of chimpanzees are shaped unusually. These muscles are often referred to as intermetacarpals instead of lumbricals in anatomy textbooks. In this way, the chimpanzee has progressed to a more primitive state than other apes. As I mentioned prior, the male chimpanzee has enormous gonads. This is thought to be because chimpanzees are promiscuous and mate in frenzies where multiple males will mate with the same female until she's had enough. This is because when ovulating, female chimpanzees will develop a huge pink swelling on their rear that drives male chimps wild and induces them to mate in large groups. Bonobos do not have the same swelling, but mate very promiscuously anyway, requiring a similar reproductive strategy. Thus, in order to be the father of the baby, it would help the chimp or bonobo to be able to produce a large amount of sperm, hence the big testicles. These huge testicles function just like any other gonad and produce considerable testosterone. To my knowledge, this has not been researched, but it stands to reason that this testosterone has a substantial effect on muscle growth. And this is supported by the fact that males of the genus are pound for pound the strongest of the great apes. A sample of captive male bonobos were found to be composed of more than 50% muscle, a value that any natural bodybuilder would be lucky to ever achieve. Wild animals are usually significantly more muscular than captive ones, so it stands to reason that a wild bonobo or chimpanzee would probably be even stronger than the captive ones were, with a 60% figure seeming reasonable. Due to their massive muscles and a relatively inefficient lipid metabolism, chimpanzees and bonobos have a lot more trouble storing fat than other apes do. Chimps and bonobos have shorter intestines than the other great apes, around the same length as in humans. This reflects a diet that is lower in fiber and higher in simple macronutrients than the other great apes. The chimpanzee's brain is slightly smaller in absolute terms than in most of the other apes. It has a highly developed visual and overall frontal cortex, both of which are greater in overall development than the bonobo. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex is slightly smaller than in the bonobos. I have stated before that in primates birth weight seems to correlate more with brain size than adult body weight does, and this trend is held up in chimpanzees, whose babies are just under a third the size of human ones, which is the same as the ratio of the disparity between human and chimpanzee brain sizes. Chimpanzees have on average the longest lives of any non-human primate, and don't age noticeably until their late 40s. They may live over 60 years if they are healthy, and unlike gorillas and orangutans, female chimpanzees can experience a form of menopause, although most don't live long enough to do so. Chimps live in very large groups that operate on a fission-fusion basis. They split up into groups to feed, then come together sporadically. They are the only non-human great apes to defend a strict territory, and are known to wage so-called wars over turf. In such battles, chimpanzees employ various tactics, but seem to prefer to ambush other chimps and pick them off until the main troop can be overwhelmed. Seemingly unaware of strangulation or vital arteries, chimpanzees are not very good at killing each other, so defeated chimps are often systematically dismembered and then abandoned to die of their wounds. But, for all their violent tendencies, chimpanzees are just as capable of altruism as other great apes are. Baby chimpanzees may be adopted by adults from other troops. When fights break out, chimpanzees are known to reconcile, with aggressor chimps grooming and soothing the very individual they had attacked earlier. Most of the reconciliation process is initiated by females, but there is one exception, the lead male chimpanzee. He usually holds on to his title by making sure the other chimps are happy, as opposed to through brute force. And though the latter does occur, such chimpanzees usually don't remain in power for long. It has also been noted that injured chimpanzees appear less likely to be attacked by other chimpanzees, implying that the apes are either capable of pity or of a sense of fairness. There are three major threats to the chimpanzee: deforestation, the bushmeat trade, and the pet trade. Deforestation in Central and West Africa is mainly driven by feed crop production, mining operations, and illegal logging. Most meat and wood products in Africa end up consumed in Africa, so there's relatively little most of my viewers can do there. But if you happen to live on the continent of man's original habitat, then you can track your meat and metal sources and make sure it comes from people you trust. Furthermore, people from anywhere can donate to the Center for Great Apes, a charity that helps conserve great apes of many species, both chimpanzees and orangutans. The bushmeat and pet trade, on the other hand, are much more international in nature. While bushmeat isn't particularly popular internationally, it is strongly linked to the pet trade, which definitely is. Female chimpanzees are shot, butchered, and sold as meat, and then their offspring is sold to a wealthy buyer who traffics the unfortunate young ape to an owner. The traumatized animals are terrible pets, and moreover, anyone who buys them is contributing directly to chimpanzee extinction. Please don't buy a pet primate.